Welcome into WNY Athletics. State Semifinals continues with the Class C Salamanca Warriors representing Section 6. They'll take on Section, 4, or are they 3? Oh, man. They're taking on Waverly, the Wolverines, out of the other side of the bracket. Of course, the one thing I didn't look up, I believe they're out of Section 4, but I could be wrong. Section 4.
It's not 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's not 5 or 6. They're in Section 4. That game about to kick off in about 15 minutes or so. Francis Beck, Tim Chifa here to get you ready for the game. And Salamanca certainly has a tough offense to take on today, and probably one of the best quarterbacks in the state, and certainly one of the best that the state has seen in a while.
Yeah, it's Joey Tommaso. He has the kind of numbers that you almost have to double check because all these real numbers. But he's the real deal. Over 2,500 yards passing, 36 touchdowns. That just this season, 36 touchdowns. Not in his career, 36 touchdowns.
To give you an idea, the Western New York record is in a season is 36.
Yeah.
Held by Cole Snyder. So
he's having a
good season.
With only 3 interceptions. But he's not done. He's also the leading rusher, 565 yards rushing with 9 more touchdowns that way. So they have their hands full, Salamanca. Waverly, only 1 loss, and it was in overtime to a team that we watched yesterday, Francis, who was just dominant, to a team that beat Salamanca. Not that that means anything. It really doesn't, but, it's something, right? But Salamanca, they're riding a wave right now, right? I mean, the last 2 weeks, they beat 2 undefeated teams to get to this point. I mean, if you look at Salamanca's season, Francis, they started out 4-2, which is a good start, but it's not. You're not sitting there 4-2 saying, "Oh, we are destined for the dome," right? It's just not. That's just not how it works.
Especially your first game, you lose to Franklinville-Elgoodville out of Class D,
and then another Class D loss is to CSV. So your 2 losses are to Class D teams. Sometimes you also rise to the level of your competition. Sometimes, or and maybe they didn't take them too serious, or maybe they're just better too.
Or maybe this was a team that just got better as the year went on.
That's what I think. We said it at the Ralph. We said we thought Salamanca was playing their best football then, right? And they showed, beating a Medina team that not many, outside of Salamancans thought that they would beat Medina. Medina was hitting on all cylinders. They were undefeated. Really weren't battle tested, and Salamanca just has been rolling since. And that epic ending last week at Will South, the decision to put in the junior quarterback on the last drive, which surprising to us, but obviously the coach Bartosek, right?
Yep.
Bartosek made the right decision. He threw a touchdown with less than 30 seconds left. I don't know exactly. It's on our.
I think it was 10 seconds. Yeah.
You can go watch it. I know it's on our pages. But yeah, the junior quarterback who has struggled with turnovers this year. He has 8 or 9 interceptions, I believe. But Coach Bartosek put the ball in his hands, and we thought it was probably because he needed his legs. Right. He seemed to be giving himself more time than Jackson Ross was, at least last week. But I think for them to be able to stay in this game, they need both those quarterbacks to have their A game today.
Yeah, Maddox Isaac led the way. So let's go back for a second into last week. Salamanca winners over Leroy 21-13 again on that last second touchdown to win it from Isaac to number 8, Bradley. Their
junior to sophomore, right?
Junior to sophomore.
Yeah.
Wide open in the end zone. Great play called by Coach Bartosek. Waverly had a little of an easier time last week. 49-8 winners over Adirondack out of Section 3. They'll meet today in about 10 minutes or so at Cicero, North Syracuse in the semifinals.
Francis, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think a little bit unique about these 2 teams with other teams that we've talked about the last couple of weeks. Both these teams have been battle tested. Okay, so a lot of teams that we have seen, especially like yesterday, pretty much rolled every team that they played. So there was really no adversity that they had to go through. Both these teams have a loss. Waverly's was in overtime. They also have a 19-15 win. So these teams, both these teams with Salamanca having 2 losses, they have dealt with some adversity. So I think something like today, I gotta, if there was a favorite, I'm leaning towards Waverly as far on paper. So if you're Salamanca, you got to keep this kid off the field, right? I mean, it's kind of elementary, but when Tommaso, did I say it right? Tommaso, right? Tommaso. We tried. I think it is. We got it. Luke Tommaso. When he's on the field, he scores. I mean, I don't think there's any getting around it. I mean, he's got 45 touchdowns between running and passing. That's absurd. You know, that's more than on some teams. You know, so I mean, Salamanca knows this, right? They watch tape. I mean, we found it out in 5 minutes, so they know it. They got to keep them off the field. Got to sustain drives, but they can't just be 5-6 minute drives that lead to nothing. You have to get points because this kid's pretty special. He's going to score.
You know, I think if going back to last week, we did hear that Tommaso did get hurt for part of that game. We heard maybe there was a late hit on the quarterback, and he was out for maybe a couple drives, came back in. Not that if you're Salamanca, you're if you're the coaching staff, you're trying to encourage that. Obviously, we don't want any injuries. But, I mean, the fact remains he's not only their leading passer, he's also their leading rusher, which means maybe you get a good licks on him, clean, of course, but you take him a little bit out of the game and you know that he's their top threat running the football, so there's no really, other back that you have to worry about too much, getting carries.
Yeah, I mean, there's a junior running back, Fravel. He's got 475 yards. He's the second. But it might be a situation, Francis, where a lot of times you'll see a defense, you'll have a linebacker, or maybe you might call him a Mike back, well, they'll actually mirror. So a lot of times it's a running back, who can get out of the backfield. This might be one of those situations where you actually mirror a quarterback because he's such a dual threat. But if you're Salamanca, it's a pick your poison, right? I mean, if you put pressure on him, you're taking a chance that he can beat you with your legs, right? And if you sit back, he might pick you apart. If I'm Salamanca, I am putting as much pressure on him as possible. I think from watching his tapes, he looks like way too good of a thrower if you give him time. I want to put pressure on him, and if he happens to beat you because he caught a blitz, and you gotta realize in high school it's not as easy. Like it's not like you're blitzing Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. The quarterback has to pick up the blitz. The receiver has to pick up the blitz, or see the blitz, not pick it up, and then hope the running back can pick it up. So if I'm Salamanca, I am not rushing 3 and sitting back. I am putting as much pressure on him as possible. And you got to almost concede he's going to beat you a few times, right? He's going to beat you, but you almost have to try that I hate the saying, but it's that bend, don't break mentality.
Keep everything in front of you.
Keep everything in front of you. If he gets, 12, 15 yards on a first down, so be it. Keep him out of the end zone. Keep him out of the end zone. And then most importantly, I think, take care of the football and long, sustained drives that have to end with points.
So Salamanca, interestingly enough, has kind of a 2-quarterback system. Right now it's Jackson Ross, who's 47 of 68, 947 yards. But they also have Maddox Isaacs, who's 42 of 77, 728 yards. And we saw Isaac get a few more snaps last week, but he was running the football.
Especially at the end.
Do you go with Isaac starting this one? Do you go back to Ross? How, if you're Coach Bartosek, how do you think you are balancing that?
Well, we have seen the last few games where Ross has been the quarterback in the very beginning, right? I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change my offensive philosophy or game plan what I did the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks I beat 2 undefeated teams, and what Coach Bartosek did, which we kind of alluded to yesterday, we talked about, Francis, is that he adapted to the situation, right? He made a call of putting the junior quarterback in on a less than 2 minutes left in the game because we thought he needed his legs. I thought that was a gutsy call. I really did, and I was surprised at it, to be honest, because the one issue that Isaac has had is he's turned the ball over. And if you turn the ball over at that point, the game's over, right? You lose. So I would have went with Ross because he, takes care of the football better, and I would look like an idiot because it was. Not saying Ross wouldn't have done the same thing, but it worked out perfectly for him. And I think you got to give Bartosek some credit. He went with his gut. He had it. That had to be a gut call, right? I mean, there's nothing else it could be. There's no statistics that say you would put Isaac in instead of Ross. Ross has better statistics, right? He's also got more experience. But it was a gut call, and it worked out perfectly. He threw a dime on that last pass. Great play call. It was just a post right across the middle, and the receiver. I know he was a sophomore. I don't have his name in front of me, but he was wide open. It's a great call, great pass. But no, to answer your question, friends, I wouldn't change anything. I would start with Ross, and I always say this, and I don't mean to keep repeating myself. If you watch our shows, I'm sorry that I always say it, but it's so important to get your quarterback's confidence up. And in this situation, you got to do it twice. So I would have Ross in for maybe the first or two series. I want to get him some quick slants and out patterns, even a screen, some easy passes to give his confidence. And then I want Isaac in the game, and I want him moving with his legs too. I want him to get hit a few times, because if you're a running quarterback or a running back, you want to get popped, right? That's how you get going. If you're a quarterback and you throw a lot, you want to complete some passes. That's how you get going. So when you have two that you have to deal with, it's a bit of a challenge, I think, for this coaching staff of Salamanca, but they've done a great job of it so far. The only other team that I've seen use the dual successfully this year was Lancaster, and that was more of like a wildcat situation.
Yeah, Cologne ran more of an RPO situation.
Yes.
Krupa was the guy who was throwing.
I'm sure there's other teams that do it, but as far as the last 3-4 weeks where we're actually focusing on 12, 16 teams.
And there's also the mental component. Besides the physical and the play calling, there's the mental component of I'm going out and this guy's coming in, but my job is not really threatened. We're sharing the load. That's a tough thing to ask for, especially for high school kids.
Yeah, especially for a senior who we mentioned this in our post game of Salamanca's game. Is Jackson Ross going to be a little shook that, as a senior, he wasn't in the last 2 minutes? And it's so important that the coaching staff overly talks to him and hypes him up to say, this wasn't because you were playing bad. It was just a decision. It was a need at that particular time. So because it's quarterback, it's a mental thing. I mean, sometimes we're mental midgets. We can be very intelligent, we can be very stupid. It's just how quarterbacks are. But we also have egos. And I would be shocked if his ego wasn't shook a little bit that as a senior he wasn't in.
Granted, though, it looks like they've been doing it all year long.
Right, exactly. But you would just think with 2 minutes left, you want the ball.
Yeah.
You want him to be a little upset, but you also want to, you also want to be a good team player. But it should make you more hungry too. The next time I go in, I think both quarterbacks have to have the mentality that when I'm in, I'm going to make it really hard for the coach to take me out. And if they both have that mentality, they're going to be successful. But if one of them is turning the ball over, or throwing some bad passes, you kind of make it easy on the coach. All
right, that will do it for us. So other side of the bracket real quick, O'Neill out of Section 9 is taking on Fonda Fultonville at Middletown. That's the east side.
There's that many sections? 9?
I think there's 11.
Wow.
11 or 12. Section 9's James O'Neill is taking on Fonda Fultonville in the East semifinal in Class C. That game happening, about to kick off right now as well. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And, of course, this one is Salamanca. Waverly is going to get started in just a few moments. You can go and watch that on the NFHS network. I believe Stu Boyer and Tom Prince are on the call.
Stu out of the bullpen, right?
Yeah, out of the
bullpen.
Yeah, he came up. I think those two are doing it. But that will do it for us for the pregame show. For Luke Prince, our producer, Tim Chifa, I'm Francis Beck. Join us at halftime, and kickoff for the Class C West semifinal is next on the NFHS Network.
What does it mean when people say America is a land of opportunity?
It means the power to discover.
To redefine yourself.
To improve yourself.
To challenge yourself.
To realize there's more in you
than you ever knew
that you could do.
It means giving people an open field to explore what they do best.
With the best tools,
the best training,
the best technology in the world.
We bring out the best in the people who serve.
So you can be all you can be.
It's time for the Big West Herb Black Friday sales event. It's really big.
And they know big.
$50 million big, set aside to buy your vehicle, but it'll go fast because whether you own or lease, we want your vehicle, and we'll even buy yours if you don't buy from us. Get your instant trade-in value at westherd.com and come in now. Great deals and $50 million ready to buy your vehicle. Hurry before it's gone.